Hello and welcome to the channel. I will tell you interesting scary stories from Reddit and not only. Do not forget to support the author of the story. I will leave his credits in the description. I also hope for your support of my channel in the form of likes and comments. I really appreciate it. Get comfortable in your bed, put on your headphones, and turn off the lights. It's going to be a night of nightmares. We're starting. The strange case of Gemma Delacroix. Gemma Delacroix was boring. At least, that's what I thought when I first saw her. She was sitting in the desk near the window, her nose in a book. I didn't think much of her despite the fact she was new to the school. Gemma wouldn't go to parties, had few friends, and was every teacher's pet. With her mousy brown hair and short stature, she blended into a crowd easily. I never thought much of her. I was a party girl. She was a loner who was more interested in books than people. The first time I ever really interacted with Gemma was an unusually hot April day. My friends and I were doing our favorite school activity, smoking weed under the bleachers. We were supposed to be in study hall, but even our teacher, more a babysitter really, stepped out during that period anyway. Truth or dare? Minnie asked. I playfully tapped my finger against my cheek, pretending to be in deep thought. Dare? Minnie laughed. Okay, I dare you too. Minnie trailed off before she caught sight of the running track surrounding the football field. To run a mile. Luna gaped at her. Are you high? Minnie waved her joint in the air. Duh. Luna shook her head. Bad phrasing. You get what I mean anyway. If someone sees, we're almost guaranteed to get caught. And if we get caught, we'll get expelled and probably arrested too. Something on, Luna, I chuckled, getting up from the ground. Nobody's gonna see. I'll be quick about it too. Before Luna could protest any further, I got up and started running. Maybe it was just the weed, but the air rushing on my face as I ran felt amazing. I was so caught up in the euphoria of it all, I almost didn't see the person up on the bleachers. I nearly tripped when I saw her. I stopped just long enough to focus on her brown hair and her bright pink cardigan. I sprinted towards our hangout spot as fast as I could. We need to leave, I gasped out, trying to catch my breath. There was somebody up on the bleachers. I knew it, Luna shouted. Did you see who it was? I thought back. I remembered another girl with brown hair who was dressed the same way. I think it was Gemma Delacroix. You know, the new girl? Luna cocked her head. Really? She skipped class? Minnie seemed unfazed. Tommy told me he saw Gemma in weird places. What? Minnie shrugged. I don't know. He said he saw her in the hallways a couple of times, just spacing out. Whatever, I said. Let's just get out of here. We tried to sneak back into the school. Right before I went back in, I looked back to the field. Gemma's brown hair was blowing in the wind, her face turned away from the school. She looked weirdly colorless against the blue sky, like a faded photo hanging on a brightly painted wall. Minnie called my name. I frowned and returned to school. I had hoped she hadn't seen me, or at least wouldn't bother ratting us out. However, it seems my hopes were dashed. Within a half hour, my friends and I were facing the vice principal. She informed us how irresponsible we were, how we should be paying attention to classes, how they would help us in life, blah, blah, blah. The only thing that I really cared about was the amount of detention we got. 3 damn weeks straight. Vice Principal DeLuca didn't fool around. When I walked into history class, I was in a crappy mood. Gemma was working on some homework at her desk, totally oblivious. I grimaced. DeLuca didn't mention who told on us, but she was vague about how she knew what we did. She just said someone had seen us out there, and there was only one culprit I could think of. Maybe I was being a bit of a bitch. Still, I couldn't help but say, "Just got 3 weeks of detention for hanging outside. Thanks for that." Gemma looked up at me, appearing to be utterly confused. "What?" I rolled my eyes. "Mun, I saw you on the bleachers. I don't know if you snitched on us to save your own skin or what, but it's not cool." For just a moment, panic seemed to flicker across her face. As quick as it came through, it immediately disappeared. "I haven't been outside all day. Sorry you got in trouble, but whoever you saw it wasn't me." She sounded so steady and calm, I almost believed her. However, I could see how her hand trembled. The pencil she was holding shaking in her grip, not to mention the way her eyes seemed to be looking everywhere but at me. I gave her a sardonic smile. "Sir, just don't ask me for any favors anytime soon." As I went to my desk, I thought I could hear Gemma mumble something under her breath. I decided that there was enough drama for today. Still, every now and then, I would catch Gemma looking at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention during the rest of the class. After that day, Gemma and I went back to ignoring each other's existence. That was until the water bottle incident. It was in gym class. Our teacher insisted we needed to learn how to play football for some reason. The sun was blaring down on us, and running around the field wasn't exactly helping us feel better. Thankfully, I had brought a water bottle. After the game, I was desperate for water. However, the water bottle didn't want to cooperate. The cap wasn't opening. "Ugh," I grunted. "What the hell is wrong with this thing?" Luna and Minnie were giggling at my small misfortune, which only got me worked up. With more strength than what was needed, I finally opened the cap. Unfortunately, I twisted a little too hard. I lost my grip on the bottle, and I couldn't recover it before it spilled. Gemma had the bad luck of standing in front of me at that time. She was talking with a friend, totally unaware of what I was doing until the water splashed onto her. "What the?" Gemma sputtered, her t-shirt now drenched. She turned to me with an accusing glare. "Why did you do that for?" "I didn't do anything, it was an accident." While that was the truth, I could understand why I didn't seem that trustworthy. Even ignoring my little tiff with her a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't help but laugh at the shock in Gemma's face when she got sprayed. "I'm sorry, seriously." Gemma's scowl made it clear she didn't believe me. Before she could give me a piece of her mind, Coach Dunleavy came up. "What happened here?" he asked. I accidentally spilled water on Gemma. I then looked down at my shirt and frowned. And myself. Dunleavy sighed. "Lucky for you two, class is almost over anyway. Delacroix, Lawson, go change, and wait in the gym for the rest of us." Gemma and I agreed without complaint. We were silent all the way back to the locker room. Gemma didn't even look at me. While we were changing, the guilt began to catch up with me. Sure, it didn't seem like a big deal to me, but I could see how it could easily be seen as bullying. While I was finished changing, I turned to Gemma. "Look, it was an accident, I swear. I'm sorry if I..." However, she was gone. I turned to the door, only to see Gemma leaving without another word or even a glance. "Okay then," I mumbled. I knew that Coach Dunleavy might want me to go to the gym, but I figured a quick trip to the bathroom wouldn't hurt. I needed to reapply my makeup anyway. I hummed a little tune to myself as went in. I got out my lipstick and looked in the mirror. I dropped the tube when I noticed I wasn't alone. Gemma was leaning against the wall. She wasn't looking at me exactly. Her eyes seemed unfocused, her expression blank. Gemma was still wearing her wet t-shirt and gym shorts. I thought she had changed out of it, but I didn't see her change. Hi?" I half greeted, half asked. I wasn't sure if she was still mad at me. When she showed no reaction, I began to get worried that Gemma might have been having a seizure or something. "Are you okay? Do you need me to get someone?" Suddenly, her eyes snapped to me. The intensity of her gaze made me step back. Gemma began to smile. It was slow. One corner of her mouth lifted before the other. She cocked her head, ever so slightly. She didn't say a word, just stared at me. It reminded me of when my cat would stare at a bird outside a window. I felt goosebumps go up my arm, but I didn't know why. I shrugged, trying to hide my discomfort. Right as I was leaving the bathroom, Gemma began to talk. Her voice didn't sound right. It was like an echo, weirdly distant and missing a certain weight in the words, if that makes sense. Like you would do me a favor in the first place. There was no emotion in her whisper, just a flat tone I wasn't sure I had ever heard used in real life. I turned to her, my eyes wide. There was no real threat in any of her words. However, the chill that I got when her eyes locked onto mine was so deep, it reached my bones. Gemma showed her teeth, turning her small smile into a wide grin. I got the sudden feeling that I needed to run and needed to do it now. I quickly slammed the bathroom door and practically sprinted towards the gym. When I finally got to it, I was breathing heavily. What the fuck just happened? Why is Gemma acting so freaky? And why did it scare me so much? I tried to gather my thoughts. Gemma was probably just messing with me for being bitchy towards her. My racing heartbeats finally began to steady. Minnie and Luna were waiting for me in the gym. They already changed back into their regular clothes. "Hey guys," I said, walking towards them. "You would not believe what had just..." I stopped dead in my tracks. Gemma, now out of her gym clothes, was leaning against the wall on the other side of the gym. My mouth fell open in shock. How could she have beaten me here? Gemma seemed to notice me then. I expected her to act smug, maybe laugh at my obvious bafflement. Yet, she cocked her head and had a puzzled expression on her face. "Earth to L," Luna's voice snapped me back to reality. "What's wrong? Did Gemma say something to you?" "Yeah, in the bathroom after I changed in the locker room," I explained. "She was acting really damn weird too. How the hell did she get here so fast? Gemma was still there when I left." Luna's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. "Wait, right before you got here? Are you sure?" "No, I saw her 3 years ago in Mexico." I rolled in my eyes. "Yeah, I went straight from the bathroom to here. Why?" Gemma was already in the gym when we got back from the field." What?" I stammered. "Are you sure?" "Well, she came in while we were going to the locker room, but it was her." Luna looked worried. "Are you sure it was her?" I nodded, but I couldn't say anything. Gemma's unfocused eyes came back to me, the feeling of being like a cornered animal returning. It would actually make more sense if I was imagining the whole thing, but it felt so real. Was I going crazy, or was Gemma doing something to do me? I just didn't know. And that was almost worse than the sight of Gemma's cold grin. I spent the next couple of days avoiding Gemma like the plague. I sat as far away from her in class as I could. I begged people to switch seats with me so I wouldn't be close to her, eating lunch in the library during our shared lunch. The peak of it was me practically begging a teacher to give me another partner after we got paired up together. Gemma looked hurt when the teacher explained it to her. I did feel a bit bad. People began to notice and gossiped about why I was avoiding her. Did she go after my boyfriend? Did I see her doing drugs? Obviously not, but high school rumors start easily and spread like wildfire. I couldn't tell anyone the real reason. They would think I'm insane. Maybe I was, but it doesn't mean I would spread the word about that. It all came to a head in the library one day. I was looking for a book I needed for a report. It was after school, so the librarian and I were the only ones in there. I was idly checking the bookshelves, searching for the title I needed when a chill ran up my back. Every hair in my body stood up. I couldn't help but feel like someone was watching. Just like before. I took a deep breath and turned around. Behind the window was Gemma. She stood in the courtyard, just behind the glass. Despite the sunny day, none of the lights seemed to touch her. Gemma remained unnaturally gray, like from an old movie. Even her crossed arms were strange, with Gemma holding them an inch away from her chest. I freaked out, of course. Then, my fear melted into anger. Who did she think she was? I didn't know how the hell Gemma doing her little magic tricks, but I was sick of them. I mirrored the blank expression on Gemma's face before giving her a pleasant smile. I then flipped her off and walked away. As I was leaving, a shallow wheezing sound followed me. I should have just kept walking, but my curiosity got the better of me. I turned back and saw Gemma grinning, her chest rising and falling dramatically. At first I didn't know what she'd doing. However, I realized that bitch was laughing at me. I never felt so angry in my life. She found my terror hilarious, like I was nothing more than a plaything. I marched back over to the window and hit it as hard I dared to. Gemma didn't even flinch. She stared at me passively before smiling at me, like I was a kitten who had tried to scratch her. Gemma slowly lifted her to her hand to the place I hit the window. She tilted her hand slightly, and the window suddenly cracked so badly I couldn't see her anymore. I nearly fell from the shock. I stepped away slowly before practically running away from the window. Fine, she won. I didn't care anymore. I was so in a hurry, I didn't even notice the other student in the library until I ran into them. "I'm so sorry," I said breathlessly. "I didn't..." The words slipped away the moment I saw her face. It was Gemma, holding some books up to her chest. She wasn't gray and she seemed confused by my shock. Then she glanced at the window. Her face went completely white. I turned to see what Gemma was looking at, and glimpsed her faded image, grinning at us from the courtyard, before disappearing in a blink of an eye. The moment I turned my head, Gemma bolted out the library like it was on fire. I chased after her, ignoring the librarian's demands to know what we were doing. I finally caught up with her in the hallway. I grabbed her by the arm and shook her. "How are you doing this?" I demanded. Gemma shook her head, her eyes wide. "I'm not doing anything, I swear." "Bullshit. I know you know what's going." "Just stop it," Gemma yelled. "You're making things worse." "Making what worse?" I didn't get to finish my sentence. The fluorescent lights exploded, bathing the hallway in darkness. I ducked instantly, covering my head with my hands. Thankfully, the covering of the lights preventing anything from falling. Gemma bolted the second I let her go. I stood, utterly baffled in the darkened hallway. I could have sworn I heard distant laughter there with me. I remained calm for the next couple of weeks. I went on ignoring Gemma, but I was more subtle and less aggressive about it. I had a plan by that point. You see, our school had a winter dance the Friday before the break. I would know what Gemma was doing, and nothing could stop me. The night of the dance, I waited quietly for Gemma, ignoring my friends' pleas that I join them. The hallways were empty, the pulsing beats of songs bouncing through them. An hour passed without any sign of Gemma. I began to get annoyed. Where was she? I stalked through the halls, looking for any sign of her. I was so focused I ran into the janitor. He scowled at me. "What's wrong? Can't find a place to smoke?" I was about to apologize when I processed his words. What's that supposed to mean? On the field that day, I told the principal you got off too lightly, but she didn't believe you were smoking. My blood felt like it turned to ice under my skin. But she believed you about me out in the football field. Yeah, I thought the detention would have at least made you more aware about the troublemaking. I guess I was wrong about that. He shook his head as he left, utterly oblivious to my shock. My entire problem, that start of this nightmare, was because I made a mistake. Now do you understand? I turned to see Gemma further down the hallway, her arms crossed. This never needed to happen. Rage built up inside me. Maybe you're right, I smiled cruelly. But I think you just wanted an excuse to go all crazy again. Gemma stiffened up a bit, yet she kept her chin up. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? So all those broken lights and lockers and even a sudden fire. That wasn't you. The school got that wrong when they expelled you for it? Gemma paled. How would you even know that? I smirked. You'd be amazed by what some social media stalking and a few DMs to your old classmates can accomplish. I stepped closer to her. Now you stop your weird ghost trick and leave me the fuck alone, or everyone's gonna know who you really are. As Gemma stared at me for a minute, then she growled through gritted teeth. You have no idea how hard it is for me, keeping every bad emotion bottled up unless she shut her eyes tight, like she's trying to block out a bad memory. I was doing so well until you just had to keep being a bitch to me. No matter how many times I told you to stop or tried to warn you, you just won't listen. Gemma slammed her hand on the wall so hard, I jumped back a bit. Gemma closed her eyes, grimaced and waited for a second. Then, she opened her eyes and looked around like she was confused. I made fists and marched up to her. What? Your trick didn't work. You need to leave now, Gemma said in a dead tone. When I tried to protest, she interrupted me. I'm not going to pretend that I like you, but you don't deserve that thing. For a second, her expression turned into one of pure pain. Nobody does. What do you mean? Gemma ran off before I could even finish the question. I chased after her, but I soon lost sight of her in the dark of the school. Then, Gemma's faint and muffled laughter. I went to it, tired of being afraid of her. Gemma stood with her back to me, looking out a window to the parking lot. She was almost a silhouette under the lights of the parking lot. So motionless, she looked like a shadow without a person. You can't scare me, Gemma, I declared. I admit, you're one hella magician, but I'm done with your shit. Gemma turned to me with a fluid motion. It was like she didn't even move her feet. She giggled so high-pitched it hurt my ears. You just won't listen. Anger welled up inside of me. I stomped up to her and grabbed her shoulder, shaking Gemma or whoever the hell she was. Hard. I'm tired of your shit. Fine, you won. I don't know what you want, but I stopped when I noticed it. Her skin didn't feel like skin. It was thin, cold to the touch, and it felt as though there was nothing underneath it, like a balloon. Before I could pull my hand back, Gemma reached out like a snake striking down prey. She was far too strong for a teenage girl, or even any person. No matter how hard I struggled, I couldn't break her grip. Gemma grinned, showing all her teeth. Freak, she whispered. Then the smile grew larger and larger. Her grin broke apart, revealing a gaping hole inside her mouth. Gemma's mouth grew so large that her nose, eyes, and neck disappeared. I couldn't process what I was seeing. Soon, I realized that it was like a zipper opening up. The real form of the monster was a smooth, featureless, completely black figure. It was a shadow that had turned solid. I finally came to my senses and opened my mouth to scream. Before I could, the figure started to strangle me. Its hands burned me when it made contact with my skin. its inhuman strength crushing my throat. My vision started to go dark. Slowly, the figure's face began to blur, and something started to form on it. The last thing I saw before I passed out was a pair of familiar eyes looking back at me. I awoke in the hospital. Minnie had found me in the hallway, passed out. The police wanted to know who tried to strangle me, but I lied, claiming I didn't remember. If I told them the truth, they wouldn't have believed me. A shadow nearly killed me? I might as well told them it was Bigfoot. I was laying in the hospital, dyeing bouquets of get-well-soon flowers, my only company. Out of sheer boredom, I picked up one. It was quite pretty, made out of hydrangeas. A small note was attached to it. I read it. "I'm so sorry. Thank you, Gemma." I was thrown back into the memory of Gemma's no, not Gemma, whatever that thing was, faded smile, its cold eyes, the unfathomable darkness of its true form. I threw the bouquet at the hospital television with all my might. The TV cracked. The light bulb in my room burst right after. I screamed and curled up in a ball in my bed. Nurses rushed to my room to see what happened. As one of them tried to coax me out of the fetal position, I caught a glimpse of something. A reflection showed in the window of my room, a teenage girl staring blankly into space, standing in the doorway of my room. She was colorless compared to everything else, unnaturally still and quiet. The girl smirked very slowly and put a finger to her lips. I numbly stared, the near-perfect double of me. I turned to the doorframe, but it was gone. Yet, I thought I could have burst a faint laughter that sounded just like mine.